Ancient Egypt often brings grand images to mind. We think of giant pyramids, we picture powerful pharaohs, we imagine golden treasures hidden in tombs. For thousands of years this civilization thrived along the Nile River. The river was its lifeblood. It brought fertile soil for farming. It was a highway for travel and trade. This land saw incredible achievements in art, writing, and building. But Egypt was more than just monuments and rulers. It was a place where ordinary people lived, worked, and played. Their daily lives were full of fascinating details. The story of ancient Egypt is very long. It stretches over 3,000 years. This history is often divided into periods. There were old, middle, and new kingdoms. During these times, Egyptian culture grew strong. They developed a complex writing system called hieroglyphs. They built amazing temples for their many gods and goddesses. Their beliefs about life after death were very important. This led to mummification and elaborate tombs. Understanding this grand background helps us. It helps us see how everyday life fit into the bigger picture of this powerful ancient world. The structure of their society was like a pyramid. The pharaoh was at the very top. He was seen as a god on earth. Below him were important officials. Viziers, priests, and nobles had power and wealth. Scribes were vital too. They could read and write, keeping records for the state. Then came the skilled workers. Artisans, craftspeople, and soldiers formed another layer. At the base were the farmers and laborers. They were the largest group. Their hard work supported everyone else. This order shaped everything in daily life, from jobs to homes. So, let's journey back in time. We will look beyond the famous pharaohs like Tutankhamun or Ramses the Great. We will explore the streets and homes of ancient Egyptians. We want to understand their routines. What did they eat? How did they care for their families? What did they do for fun? By looking at these details, we uncover a rich and complex world. It's a world that still fascinates us today. The daily experiences of these people built the foundation of a civilization that left a lasting mark on history. Ancient Egyptian society was highly organized. Everyone had a place. This order was called Ma'at. It meant balance, truth, and justice. The pharaoh was responsible for maintaining Ma'at. His position was divine, linking gods and people. Below him, the vizier was like a prime minister. He managed the country's administration. Priests served the gods in temples. They held great influence and controlled vast temple lands. Nobles owned large estates. They often held important government or military positions. Their status gave them many privileges. Scribes were the educated class. They were essential for keeping records. They wrote down laws, taxes, and historical events. Learning to be a scribe took many years, but it offered a good life and social advancement. Artisans and craftspeople were skilled workers. They included stonemasons, carpenters, jewelers, and potters. They created beautiful objects for temples, tombs, and daily use. Soldiers protected Egypt's borders. They also worked on large building projects. Their service could bring rewards like land or gold. These groups formed the middle part of society. The largest group was the farmers. They worked the land along the Nile. Their lives followed the rhythm of the river's flood. They grew wheat, barley, vegetables, and flax. Their labor fed the entire population. Below them were unskilled laborers. They did heavy work like construction or mining. Servants worked in the households of the wealthy. At the very bottom were slaves, often captives of war. They had the fewest rights. This strict hierarchy meant your birth often decided your life path and opportunities. Compensation was not usually in money as we know it. Instead, people were paid in goods. This was called a barter system or payment in kind. Scribes, officials, and skilled workers received rations. These included bread, beer, grain, fish, and cloth. The amount depended on their job and status. A high-ranking official received much more than a simple laborer. For example, workers at Deir el-Medina, who built the royal tombs, received regular supplies. This system ensured people had what they needed to live, even without coins circulating widely for everyday transactions until much later periods. Where an ancient Egyptian lived depended greatly on their social standing and job. Cities like Thebes or Memphis were bustling centers. They were filled with temples, palaces, markets, and workshops. Houses in cities were often built close together. They were made of mud bricks, which were cheap and easy to produce. Wealthier city dwellers might have larger homes. These homes could be 2 or 3 stories high. They often had a central courtyard open to the sky. This provided light and air. Rooms would be arranged around this courtyard for sleeping, eating, and storage. Inside a typical city home, furnishings were simple. People had wooden beds with woven reed bases. They used chests to store clothes and belongings. Small tables, stools, and pottery jars were common. Walls might be whitewashed. Sometimes they were decorated with colorful paintings, especially in richer homes. These paintings often showed scenes of daily life, nature, or religious figures. Roofs were flat. People used them as extra living space, especially in the cool evenings. They might cook, eat, or even sleep on the roof when it was hot. Rural homes in the countryside were different. Farmers and villagers lived in simpler houses. These were also made of mud brick. They were usually single-story dwellings. They often had only a few rooms. These homes were built on slightly higher ground. This protected them from the Nile's annual flood. Families lived close to their fields and livestock. So, their homes might include areas for animals like goats or chickens. Granaries for storing harvested grain were also very important. Life in the country was quieter and tied directly to the agricultural seasons. Whether in the city or the countryside, the home was central to family life. Families were important in ancient Egypt. Most households included parents, children, and sometimes grandparents or other relatives. The kitchen was a key area. Bread was a staple food baked in clay ovens. Beer, made from barley, was the most common drink for everyone, including children. Homes were places of work too. Women often wove linen cloth. Men might do small crafts. The design of their homes reflected their needs and the materials available to them. The Nile River was the heart of Egypt's economy. Many occupations were directly linked to it. Farming was the most common job. Farmers anxiously awaited the annual inundation, the flooding of the Nile. This flood brought rich black silt that made the land fertile. They grew emmer wheat for bread and barley for beer. They also cultivated flax for making linen cloth, and various vegetables like onions, garlic, and lettuce. Farmers used simple tools like wooden plows and sickles. Their hard work fed the nation and provided surpluses for trade. Beyond farming, the Nile supported many other crafts. Fishermen used nets, hooks, and traps to catch fish from the river. Fish was an important source of protein. Boat builders were also crucial. They constructed vessels of all sizes from papyrus reeds and wood. These boats were used for fishing, transporting goods, and travel. The Nile was the main highway of Egypt. Merchants used boats to carry grain, pottery, linen, and luxury items up and down the river. They traded with different towns and regions and even with foreign lands. In towns and cities, skilled artisans practiced many trades. Potters made clay vessels for storing food, water, and wine. Weavers, mostly women, produced fine linen cloth. This cloth was used for clothing, bedding, and mummy wrappings. Carpenters made furniture, tools, and coffins. Metalworkers crafted tools, weapons, and beautiful jewelry from copper, bronze, and gold. Stonemasons and sculptors worked on temples and tombs, creating magnificent statues and reliefs. These craftspeople often worked in workshops supervised by officials or temples. Their skills were highly valued. Scribes, as mentioned, played a vital role in commerce and administration. They recorded harvests, taxes, and trade transactions. They wrote contracts and legal documents. Without scribes, the complex Egyptian state could not function. Every aspect of production and distribution was carefully monitored and documented. Even simple transactions might be recorded on pieces of pottery or flakes of limestone called ostraca. This attention to detail shows how organized Egyptian society was. The work of all these people, from farmer to scribe, contributed to Egypt's wealth and stability for centuries. Section 5. Bodies and balance: health, healing, and hygiene. Ancient Egyptians cared about their health and appearance. They believed that cleanliness was important for both body and spirit. They bathed regularly, often using natron, a type of salt, as a cleansing agent. Wealthier Egyptians might have dedicated bathing areas in their homes. Perfumes and scented oils were popular with both men and women. They used these to soften their skin and smell pleasant. Eye makeup, made from kohl, which is black, or malachite, which is green, was widely used. It was not just for beauty. They believed it helped protect their eyes from the sun's glare and from infections. When illness struck, Egyptians turned to a mix of medicine and magic. Doctors, known as Subnw or Sunu, existed. Some specialized in certain areas like dentistry or internal medicine. They used observation and examination to diagnose illnesses. Their treatments often involved herbal remedies. They had a good knowledge of plants and their properties. For example, honey was used as an antiseptic for wounds. Willow bark, which contains salicylic acid much like aspirin, might have been used for pain. Medical texts written on papyrus, like the immerse papyrus, list many remedies and spells. Despite their medical knowledge, dental problems were very common. This was largely due to their diet. Bread was a staple, but the process of grinding grain with stone querns introduced tiny particles of sand and grit into the flour. This grit wore down teeth over time. Many mummies show evidence of severe tooth wear, abscesses, and tooth loss. Dentists existed, but their treatments were limited. They could drain abscesses, extract loose teeth, and perhaps try to bind wobbly teeth together with wire. There was no drilling or filling cavities as we know it. Magical spells and amulets were also a big part of healing. Egyptians believed that illness could be caused by evil spirits or the anger of gods. So, priests and magicians often worked alongside doctors. They would recite incantations or provide protective amulets to ward off sickness or help with recovery. The goddess Sekhmet was associated with both plague and healing. The god Thoth was the patron of knowledge, including medical knowledge. This blend of practical medicine and religious belief was typical of their approach to health and well-being. They sought balance in all things for a healthy life. Section 6. Play and pastimes recreation in the land of pharaohs. Life in ancient Egypt was not all work and worship. People found time for fun and relaxation. Children played with toys much like children do today. They had wooden dolls, toy animals with moving parts, balls made of leather or reeds and spinning tops. Wall paintings show children playing running games, leapfrog, and tug-of-war. These activities helped them develop skills and simply enjoy their youth. Even in a society focused on order and duty, the joys of childhood were present. They learned through play and imitation of adult activities. Adults also enjoyed various games and sports. One of the most popular board games was Senet. It was a game of strategy and luck played on a board with 30 squares. Pieces were moved according to throws of casting sticks or knuckle bones. Senet was not just a game, it also had religious meaning. It symbolized the journey of the soul through the underworld. Images of people playing Senet are found in tombs, suggesting they wanted to play it in the afterlife too. Another game was Mayhen, or the snake game, played on a spiral board. Physical activities and sports were valued. Hunting and fishing were not just for food but also for sport, especially for nobles. They hunted wild birds in the marshes with throwing sticks. They hunted desert animals like gazelles and antelopes with bows and arrows, often from chariots. Fishing with harpoons was also a popular pastime. Athletic competitions took place, including wrestling, boxing, and running races. Soldiers engaged in these sports to stay fit. Wall reliefs in tombs often depict lively scenes of these recreational activities, showing their importance in daily life. Storytelling, music, and dance were common forms of entertainment. Families and communities would gather to listen to stories and myths. These tales often taught moral lessons or explained the world around them. Musicians played instruments like harps, lutes, flutes, and sistrums, a type of rattle. Dancers, both male and female, performed at banquets, festivals, and religious ceremonies. These gatherings provided a chance for people to socialize, relax, and enjoy themselves. Evenings could be spent in the company of friends and family, sharing food, drink, and entertainment. Section 7. Echoes of Joy. Festivals, feasts, and sacred rhythms. Religious festivals were a huge part of life in ancient Egypt. They broke the routine of daily work. They brought communities together. These festivals honored specific gods and goddesses. They celebrated important events in the mythological calendar. One of the most famous was the Opet festival in Thebes. During Opet, the statues of the gods Amun, Mut, and Khonsu traveled from Karnak Temple to Luxor Temple. This journey was a grand procession. People lined the route, singing, dancing, and feasting. It reaffirmed the pharaoh's connection to the gods. Another important celebration was the beautiful Feast of the Valley. This festival also took place in Thebes. It honored the dead. Families would visit the tombs of their ancestors on the west bank of the Nile. They would bring food and drink offerings. They essentially had a picnic with their deceased relatives. It was a time to remember and connect with loved ones who had passed on. These festivals were not somber occasions. They were filled with music, dancing, and plentiful food and beer. They provided spiritual renewal and social cohesion. Music and dance were essential elements of these cultural activities. Musicians played a variety of instruments. Harps and lutes provided melody. Flutes and clarinets added to the sound. Percussion instruments like drums, tambourines, and sistrums kept the rhythm. Dancers, often elaborately dressed and adorned, performed intricate movements. Their performances could be part of religious rituals in temples. They could also be entertainment at private banquets for the wealthy. These artistic expressions were a vibrant part of Egyptian culture, enriching daily life and sacred ceremonies. Beyond the grand state festivals, smaller, local celebrations also occurred. These might honor a local deity or mark agricultural milestones like the harvest. Feasting was common at all these events. Egyptians enjoyed bread, beer, wine, meat like beef, goat or poultry, fish, fruits, and cakes sweetened with honey. Banquets for the elite could be lavish affairs with many courses and abundant entertainment. These gatherings, whether large public festivals or smaller private parties, offered a chance for joy, community bonding, and a break from the labors of everyday existence. They reinforced social ties and religious devotion. Section 8. Did you know? Intriguing facts from ancient Egypt. Did you know that ancient Egyptian women had more rights than women in many other ancient societies? They could own property in their own name. They could inherit land and goods. They could run businesses and enter into legal contracts. Women could also initiate divorce. While men usually held public office, some women, like Hatshepsut, even ruled as pharaohs. This level of legal independence for women was quite remarkable for the ancient world. It shows a different perspective on gender roles than often assumed. Did you know that beer was a staple food, not just a drink in ancient Egypt? It was consumed daily by people of all ages, including children. Egyptian beer was thick and nutritious, more like a thin porridge. It was made from barley or emmer wheat. It provided calories, vitamins, and hydration. Workers on large construction projects, like the pyramids, received daily rations of bread and beer. It was considered a fundamental part of their wages and sustenance. So, when you think of ancient Egypt, remember, beer was as essential as bread. Did you know that both men and women in ancient Egypt wore makeup and wigs? Kohl eyeliner was used by everyone. It was believed to have magical healing properties and protect the eyes. Green eyeshadow made from malachite was also popular. Wigs made from human hair or plant fibers were common, especially among the elite. They were worn for special occasions or to protect the scalp from the sun. Egyptians also used perfumes, oils, and lotions to care for their skin. Personal adornment and hygiene were clearly very important to them. Did you know that ancient Egyptians mummified not only humans but also animals? Millions of animal mummies have been discovered. These include cats, dogs, ibises, crocodiles, baboons, and even shrews. Some animals were beloved pets mummified to accompany their owners into the afterlife. Others were bred and mummified in huge numbers as offerings to specific gods. For example, ibises were offered to Thoth, the god of wisdom, and cats were offered to Bastet, the cat goddess. This practice shows the deep connection Egyptians felt with the animal world and their devotion to their deities. Section 9. Beyond the Tombs, the rich tapestry of Egyptian life. Looking back at daily life in ancient Egypt reveals so much more than just pyramids and pharaohs. We see a society with a clear structure. Everyone knew their place, from the divine pharaoh to the hardworking farmer. This order, Ma'at, was central to their worldview. Their lives were guided by the rhythms of the Nile River. It shaped their agriculture, their travel, and their settlements. Whether living in a crowded city like Thebes or a quiet rural village, their homes were centers of family life and simple comforts. The ingenuity of ancient Egyptians shines through in their occupations. Skilled artisans created objects of stunning beauty and utility. Farmers developed techniques to harness the Nile's gifts. Scribes meticulously recorded the details of a complex administration and economy. Even their approach to health shows a fascinating blend of practical knowledge and magical belief. They sought to maintain balance in their bodies and their environment. Their dental struggles remind us of the everyday realities and challenges they faced, despite their grand monuments. Their leisure and cultural activities paint a picture of a vibrant people. They found joy in games, sports, music, and dance. Festivals provided opportunities for community celebration and religious devotion. These events broke the monotony of work and reinforced social bonds. The intriguing facts, like women's rights or the importance of beer, challenge simple assumptions. They add layers to our understanding of this ancient civilization. They show us that ancient Egyptians were people with relatable concerns, joys, and beliefs, even across thousands of years. In summary, the daily experiences of ancient Egyptians were diverse and complex. Their society was built on a foundation of agriculture, skilled craftsmanship, and a strong belief system. From the food they ate and the clothes they wore, to the way they raised their children and honored their gods, every aspect of their lives contributed to the enduring legacy of ancient Egypt. It is by exploring these details of daily existence that we truly begin to appreciate the depth, resilience, and humanity of one of the world's most fascinating civilizations. Their story is written not just in stone but in the patterns of everyday life.